Hey, what's up? And today, little chat by the way. Today I was thinking about this thing about how like sometimes doors close, sometimes you fail, and sometimes it's the best thing to happen. And how sometimes even the things that are the most painful are the most like lead to the most big things in online. And I made a video yesterday about like oh it has to get worse before it gets better. This is a similar deal, but like it's a little deal in that s- sometimes doors closing is the only way for better ones to open. And I say sometimes, but like realistically, it's pretty much every time. Like anytime something, whatever, even if it now it may take time, like even if it takes years or whatever, but it will open for a better one. So, like for example, let's say a relationship doesn't work out, and okay, there's like qualifiers here to where it's like, okay, you're not being an absolute like jerk or douchebag, or you're not cheating or doing that stuff, or like you're like if you're doing everything quote unquote, right, or if you're trying your best here and it still doesn't work out, all stuff. This is what kind of what I'm saying. I'm not saying like when you f it up on purpose, but so, say take a relationship for example. You're like, oh, I love this girl, all this stuff, and it didn't work out. Ultimately, that's closing the door to open a better one in the future. Now, hey, it's not like it's gonna happen like oh, went from this trashy, what is it, from this relationship where this girl or guy didn't love me back, reciprocate me, didn't value me, big words these, but didn't do any of that stuff. And then the next day, oh, I'm with someone that loves me and knows all that. No, no, no. It could be years. Like, being honest, it could be years. I don't know. I mean, let's be honest here. I've not had a relationship, so who am I to say? But it's one of those things where it's almost like it's a good thing for this stuff to happen quicker, or like for this stuff to happen, than for it to not happen, or like happen down the line. And that's why like listening to what the universe or whatever it is that you want to call it is telling you is so important, because a lot of times it will say the same thing repeatedly, like it's like an alarm going off, and you kind of try to ignore it, you try to suppress it. But the quicker you're able to like listen to it and allow it to like to learn from it, the easier you're able to get to that next door, or just get out of this wrong situation to where it's like you're preparing yourself for there. Now it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen quick. That oh you go from trash to great, but that you're putting yourself in a position to where it can happen. And that's what I've seen with the relationship, talking about like, okay, loss, grief, all that stuff. That's a thing. It's a tricky thing because loss and grief is one of those things that you can't really escape. It's not really something like a relationship or like, oh, let's say you hate a job or you don't like school or you don't like hanging out with this person that like a friend that's not really a friend. Loss and grief is kind of one of those things that for me, it's like it's not something that you can avoid really. Like for me, it's been something that even when I'm dreaming, I still can avoid it. It's not a singular object or thing or whatever that you're like, okay, when I'm not around this person or when I'm not in this relationship, when I'm not. No, it's something that kind of carries on. So it's how you deal with it that allows you to allow it to be a beneficial thing for you down the line. And that's why the mindset of okay, now that sucked, but it's only helping me in the end for it to happen is so important, because if you get drowned in that thing of being like, oh, this sucks or why this happened to me, all that stuff, and you sulk in that, and you never, it's not just that you never like feel better, it's that you never grow. You're never able to kind of do what you could do if you live in that. And that's a shame. It kind of sucks. And ultimately, no matter if you say it or not, you feel it, because when you're not doing anything, but you know you can do something, it's, there's a disconnect there that kind of, at least in my case, kind of pisses me off a little bit. When I know I could do more and I'm not doing more, it's whatever. So that's why I'm kind of like I'm like bringing on when it comes to like doors closing or things not working out or things happening that are really tough, because it allows you to kind of grow or think. And the biggest thing I noticed is have a new perspective. And the new perspective thing is tied to the new doors or whatever opening so like tightly, because of the fact that when you how do you gain new perspectives if the things that are if everything works out fine, like if everything works out perfectly, then you're not trying new stuff, you're not failing, you're not messing up. So how do you have new perspectives? New perspectives come from doing things you have done before, being in situations done before, going to places, being around people, all this stuff. And that doesn't come from just doing the same thing over and over. It's the exact opposite. So that's one of the main reasons why it's so important to listen to whatever's happening to the universe and not be scared by fear and not be scared of that stuff and let it hold you back. Is that when you're able to listen to that and do that stuff and challenge yourself and do things you never would, you're able to see from different perspectives, see it for different things, and not be so confined to whatever it is that's going on, whether it's the people you're around or community or like just I don't know, any of that stuff that kind of like keeps you in this bubble. When you kind of pop that and you kind of just allow yourself to like do a variety of things, see different things and stuff like that, it just allows you to realize that it's not life is not what you quite thought it was. There's a lot more to it, and now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you pop the ball, do all this stuff, and ultimately it's like fantastic and all that stuff. Like there's a lot of times you do the thing. Like for me, I've done a lot of things that I was scared of, and it ended up being absolutely terrible. It ended up like being some of the toughest times of my entire life, which sucks. But it also is one of the things with the doors closing. It allows you to do things, grow, and the more you handle, the more you're able to handle. So if you can handle stuff, then it means that you could do more. It's a weird way of thinking of things, but for me, I think about like, okay, if I can go through whatever the hell going through, and just purely based off belief, if I can put like keep going through this life, and not necessarily just keep going, but keep doing what I'm doing, not like be addicted to drugs, barely getting by or whatever, so like, but actively, sure, like fail and all stuff, but like do stuff or like do things and like whatever. If I could do that while being in a situation like this, then why can't I do some big things and amazing things? Why can't I do this? Why can't I think in this way? Why can't I do this and that? It's even as simple as like when you're working out doing stuff, or when you're like going on a run, you're like, I'm really tired, but I think I can run this part, or I think I can do this extra little part, or oh, I think I can go for a little bit longer. Like just the little things of thinking in that mindset to where like you're like, you know what, I can do that more. If I can go through this, then I can do this, and that kind of motivation mindset, all stuff is so important when it comes to being in situations where you don't know what's next, and also when it's a tough situation that you're in and you don't know what's next. Because it's one thing when you are in like a pretty decent situation, like you're like, okay, I can deal with this. If this is my life, I can do it. And you're like, okay, and you don't know what's happening next. That's one thing. It's when it's tough, when it's like pretty much hell, and you don't know what's next. That's when it gets a little spicy, a little interesting, and that's when all of this trust and stuff, and all these like, oh, whatever, being open to what's thing is so important, because it's easy to fail or do all that stuff when you have a whole bunch of other stuff to kind of rely on and whatever. But when it's just you, and you're going through these things, and it's like a last ditch effort, you do something and it's just like, oh, it kills you. Like I went out to California a little bit ago, so desperately, not even thinking it was gonna be like a thing to where I would be like happier, but that I would have that like thing like, oh, you know what, I want to be out here, I want to do this and that, and I just was not present, and it killed me because I went through all my college time. I was like, you know what, this a lot of this sucks, but I really feel like if I do this thing, then maybe I could do it. And I did the thing. I went out there, like I was talking about the door thing. I did the thing, and it ended up. It was just it was that, and I didn't anticipate that. And so what I did is I went through that, and I was like, you know what, this sucks, but I'm gonna go through. There's like a 9 month lease. I'm like, I'm gonna stay here at least a good chunk of the time. Like, what makes sense? I'm gonna stay here and do this. That that was really tough. And theoretically, it's one of those things that it was a fail, but I was able to learn, grow, and gain new perspective from being out there. And so it wasn't really a failure to me. Versus like if I was just staying, being comfortable, all stuff, and let's say it was a success and everything, I wouldn't have done or tried as many things as I did, or gone out of my comfort zone, or done this and that in order to grow my confidence, grow, do whatever. It's by failing and doing these things, by trying these things, opening these. I keep saying the door thing, but by opening these doors, and sure, you might walk into a bunch of Legos, or it might be like literal fire inside there. I don't care. At least you try it, and you keep, and eventually you open one. You're like, oh shoot, I actually like writing. I like going on walks. I don't know. It's like by doing that kind of stuff, it's so important to like live a full life and have a feeling of like purpose and stuff like that. Because the more stuff you're able to do, the more areas you're like, okay, you know what? I don't like this, but I like this, and you don't get to this thing if you don't try to do other stuff that you normally don't do. And that's kind of what I'm trying to encourage people is that just if you have like a gut feeling, or you have that like little thing to like try something, do that thing, do that move, to hang out with that person, try this career, I don't know, like try ice cream. If you have that like hunch, like listen to that, especially when it repeats. That's one of those things that you got to listen to, and that's the things that I actively try to listen to more and more about, like trying that thing or doing that little thing, because it will help you down the line. It just makes life a little more colorful. So hopefully this helped. I love you all. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.